Have you ever wondered how a simple little cherry red berry managed to drag half of humanity out of bed every morning for over 1,000 years? You feel the question lingering in the air like a lazy stretch, inviting you into a story you didn't even know you needed tonight. Okay, so if you're here a lot, you know I ask for likes and subscribers. But seriously, where are you guys? Comment on your location and time. Sometimes I see someone from California listening at 3 p.m, and I'm like, are you napping? We're heading to How People Accidentally Invented Coffee in a minute. You settle in, feeling your shoulders sink an inch lower as the world around you softens. And you drift into the highlands of Ethiopia, long before alarms, long before Starbucks sizes, long before your favourite mug even existed. You walk along a rugged path lined with shrubs and dusty earth, the morning sun still shy, casting fuzzy gold along the slopes. Your feet crunch gently against the soil, a rhythm slow enough to ease your breathing into something calmer, steadier, almost sleepy. You hear the faint bleating of goats before you see them. They're scattered across a hillside, hopping, dancing, and doing whatever goats do when they're unsupervised and feeling chaotic. You take a moment to watch them, because even though this place is wild and vast, there's something comforting in how ordinary it all feels. And there, somewhere between the goats and the breeze, stands a herder, Kaldi, though he has no idea that future civilizations will meme him endlessly for this moment. You see him frowning with the concentration of someone trying to solve the most ancient question ever asked. Why are my goats acting like they just had 4 espresso shots? You walk closer. The goats are jittery, animated, practically vibrating. One little troublemaker hops onto a rock and stares at you with wide, caffeinated eyes, like he's judging your life choices. You feel a soft laugh rise in your chest, but you let it out quietly. Everything here is quiet, easy, and slow. Sleepy even, despite the goat's questionable behaviour. The herder kneels beside a cluster of bushes you hadn't noticed. You lean in too. The branches are dotted with glossy leaves and bright red berries that look strangely inviting. You pluck one, roll it between your fingers, and feel its delicate skin give a little under the pressure. You smell it, and it doesn't smell like coffee. Not yet. It smells like something raw, earthy and innocent, still unaware of its destiny as humanity's legal stimulant of choice. Kaldi gestures at the goats, then at the berries, then again at the goats. You understand what he means immediately. These tiny berries are doing something. You feel the breeze shift, brushing warm air along your cheeks. The hills stretch out before you like an unrolled scroll, waiting, patient, ancient. You walk along the slope following a goat that seems to be experiencing spiritual enlightenment in real time. You watch as it nibbles more berries and then prances away like it just got cast in a musical. You stay with it for a while, pacing slowly, gently, listening to the rustle of leaves and the soft thumps of hooves on the earth. And somewhere in the quiet, as you stand in the place where coffee's legend begins, you feel that familiar sleep-friendly rhythm settle into your bones. The scene drifts lightly around you. The hills, the goats, the berries. And even though you know caffeine will someday wake millions of people up, this moment holds its own kind of restfulness. You inhale the cool air. You exhale slowly. And the story, like those berries, is just beginning. You walk a bit further with Kaldi, who now looks deeply offended on a personal level by how energetic his goats are. You can't blame him. They're sprinting in erratic zigzags, climbing rocks like tiny mountaineers, and occasionally pausing to stare dramatically into the distance as if composing goat poetry. It's chaos, but the kind of gentle, amusing chaos that makes your mind soften around the edges. Kaldi plucks another handful of the red berries and turns them over in his palm, squinting like the berries owe him money. You watch him, your steps slow, your breathing steady, the whole landscape humming softly beneath your feet. The morning warms just a little, enough to take the chill out of the air. You let that warmth soak through your hands as you run your fingers across the leaves of a nearby tree. You wander toward a ridge overlooking a valley wrapped in a hazy blue, the kind that makes everything feel far away and harmless. The goats follow you as if you're their emotional support human now, though they're far too caffeinated to admit it. One bumps into your leg, another twirls in place like it's auditioning for a dance troupe. You laugh under your breath, a slow, tired kind of laugh that somehow makes you feel more awake and sleepier at the same time. Kaldi mutters something under his breath about berries of mischief, and you watch him pace in a small frustrated circle. He's a simple herder, He's seen storms, wolves, and stubborn goats, yet nothing has prepared him for these unreasonably enthusiastic animals. You feel a bit of sympathy for him, but also a quiet appreciation for being here in a moment no one knows is about to echo through history. You kneel beside another berry bush and gently touch its leaves. You feel the smoothness under your fingertips, the faint snap as you pluck one berry free. You don't eat it, not yet, but you imagine its taste. Probably tart, probably strange, probably something you wouldn't expect to change the world. You walk slowly down a slope and find a small clearing. The ground is soft beneath your feet, blanketed with fallen leaves that whisper as you pass. You hear a distant bird call, long, low and unbothered by the goat's antics. You let the sound settle into your mind, smoothing out the last bit of tension in your shoulders. Kaldi approaches you with an idea forming in his expression. You can see it brewing. Not coffee yet, but curiosity. He gestures that maybe the goats aren't possessed or enchanted or experiencing goat midlife crises. Maybe it's the berries themselves. You nod, because you've seen enough to agree. He offers you a berry, and you hold it gently, feeling the weight of something surprisingly light. You crush it lightly between your fingers and hear the faint pop of the skin breaking. Inside is soft pulp, sticky and fragrant in a way that's unfamiliar but comforting. You smell the faint sweetness, not awake in the sharp way roasted coffee will be centuries later, but warm enough to intrigue you. You start walking again, the two of you stepping together through the quiet of the Highlands. The goats trail behind, gradually tiring themselves out. Caffeine can only carry a goat so far, apparently. Their energy dips into something gentler, softer, a sleepy kind of alertness that mirrors the slow rhythm growing in you. The valley around you glows under the rising sun, and you feel the day stretching towards something new. You don't know it yet, but monks will soon experiment with these berries, roasting and brewing and discovering the drink that will someday fuel entire civilizations. For now, though, it's just you, Kaldi, and a group of goats slowly coming down from their berry-induced high. You draw in a deep breath. The warmth, the breeze, the quiet. Everything settles into place, and step by step, the story gently carries you forward. You walk with Kaldi a little deeper into the Highlands, where the bushes thicken and the air feels heavier with the earthy scent of leaves and soil. The goats have finally decided that sprinting marathons is exhausting, so now they trail behind you with a kind of post-party sluggishness, their earlier caffeine spree fading into a quiet shuffle. You glance back at them, and one gives you a look that feels like, "Don't judge me." You don't. Everyone has their moments. As you pace forward, you run your hands gently along the tops of the coffee shrubs. You feel the firmness of the berries, the slight chill still tucked into the morning air, and the softness of the breeze brushing the back of your neck. You hear the faint rattle of branches as the goats wander through them, still curious, but far less explosive now. Everything here has settled into a slow hum, like the world's volume knob has been turned to a comfy, drowsy level. Kaldi stops again, crouching low beside a bush, and you crouch too, mirroring him. He spreads a few berries on the ground, poking at them as though hoping one of them will reveal its secrets. You sit beside him for a moment, letting your legs stretch out and your back relax. You tilt your head up, watching a pale cloud drift lazily across the sky. Even the sky looks sleepy. You hear Kaldi sigh, not a frustrated sigh this time, but a contemplative one, the kind you make when you're starting to suspect the universe is trying to tell you something. He gathers some branches, arranging them carefully, and gestures for you to pick berries. You fill your hands with the red fruit, the stems snapping softly between your fingers. A little way off you see an older monk from a nearby monastery walking toward you. His robe sways around his ankles, and his steps are slow and deliberate, like a man who's learned the art of conserving his energy. You watch him approach, curious. He's clearly seen the bean-fueled goat rave from afar, and the expression on his face tells you that monks, even the calmest ones, do not appreciate being kept awake by livestock experiencing cosmic enlightenment. The monk kneels beside the berries and picks one up. He rolls it between his fingers the same way you did earlier. You can practically see the calculations forming in his mind. Is this edible? Will it kill me? Will it make the goat stop vibrating? You sit quietly, watching the moment unfold, the three of you forming an odd little council, one herder, one monk, and you. The monk takes a tentative nibble. You watch his eyebrows rise as the taste hits him. Not delicious, not terrible, but interesting. Then he tastes the pulp more closely, sniffing it, examining it with the seriousness of a man grading a student's final exam. He gestures that it might be useful, maybe as food, maybe as medicine, maybe as something else entirely. He gathers the berries into a small cloth pouch and motions for you and Kaldi to follow him. You stand, dusting off your hands, and fall into step beside him. The path to the monastery winds gently downward, lined with stones that warm in the sun. You walk at an easy pace, letting the feel of the earth steady your breathing. As the sun climbs, the light shifts into a soft gold that fills the valley with a dreamy glow. The goats follow at a distance now, quieter, subdued, caffeine crash complete. You feel the air thicken with warmth as you approach the stone walls of the monastery, tucked against the hillside. It's old, worn by wind and time, with faint smoke drifting from a small hearth inside. When you step through the doorway, the cool dimness wraps around you like a blanket. You hear the muted chanting of monks deeper within, their voices low and calm. You follow the older monk into a small chamber, where he sets the berries on a wooden table. He lights a small fire, the flame crackling gently, and places a flat stone beside it. You sit on a woven mat, legs folding beneath you, and watch as he begins his first experiment with the berries, drying them slowly, warming them, testing their aroma. You inhale deeply and feel yourself settle, your mind drifting into the rhythm of the fire. The world outside grows soft around the edges. This is where coffee begins to transform. Not yet a drink, not yet a ritual, but the very first moment a human tries to coax something new out of those little red fruits. You watch, still and curious, as the warm scent of drying berries fills the room, hinting at the future without revealing it fully. And step by step, you feel the story drawing you deeper in. You wake, not from sleep, but from that soft, drifting calm that settles over you when firelight flickers in front of you, and time moves just a little slower than usual. You're still sitting on the woven mat, the older monk tending the berries with careful, deliberate motions. Kaldi has positioned himself in the corner, arms folded, looking half proud and half confused that this entire ordeal started because his goats got hyper. You watch the monk lift one of the berries off the warm stone. The outer skin has dried and wrinkled slightly. He rubs it between his palms, humming softly. The aroma is mild, earthy, faintly sweet. Nothing like the bold, roasted scent the world will one day obsess over, but it's enough to make him pause, examining it again with deeper curiosity. You shift your weight and sit a little straighter, the mat creaking softly beneath you. You feel the air cool against your arms as a breeze slips in through a narrow window. It carries with it the scent of the Highlands, crisp, green, ancient. You breathe it in and feel your shoulders loosen further, like the place itself is encouraging you to relax. Kaldi moves closer, crouching beside the monk. He gestures animatedly about the goats, reenacting their chaotic performances with enough enthusiasm to almost bring the animals back to life. The monk listens with quiet patience, nodding slowly, as though taking mental notes about every goat jump and jitter. Then the monk brings a pot of water from a corner, steam curling from its surface. He pours a small amount over the dried berries, letting them soften. The water tints slightly, turning into something that looks more like a weak fruit tea than anything remotely coffee-like. You watch as the monk lifts the pot to his nose, inhales, and frowns thoughtfully, not disappointed, just considering. He dips a small wooden cup into the mixture and holds it out toward you. You hesitate, not out of fear, but because there's something strangely ceremonial about being handed the first proto-coffee in history. You wrap your hands around the cup, feeling the warmth seep into your palms. You lift it slowly and take a careful sip. It's odd. You can't lie to yourself. The taste is thin, grassy, almost broth-like with a hint of tart fruit. But beneath it, buried somewhere deep, is the faintest suggestion of what coffee will become. A whisper, a promise. You lower the cup and breathe out slowly. Kaldi watches your reaction like he's waiting for a thunderbolt of revelation, and the monk waits with quiet expectation. You give a small nod, not of excitement, but of acknowledgement. There's something here, something worth exploring. The monk sips next. His eyes soften as he tastes it, an expression that says, "It's not perfect, but it's a start." He gestures to the fire, to the stones, to the berries as though forming a plan in his mind. You can almost see the wheels turning. If heating the berries changes them even a little, then what might roasting do? Crushing them, grinding them, boiling them differently? You lean back on your palms, stretching your legs out across the mat. The warmth from the hearth wraps around you again, settling like a soft blanket. The monastery's stone walls glow faintly orange from the firelight, and the quiet chants from deeper within echo like a lullaby. You close your eyes for a moment, listening. The fire snaps gently. Kaldi's goats bleat somewhere outside, still recovering from their epic energy crash. The breeze whistles softly through the window's carved opening, and beneath all of it, you sense the beginning of something bigger. A discovery that will travel from these mountains to distant cities, ships, markets, kitchens, and sleepy people everywhere. The monk adjusts the fire, then looks at you with a tiny spark of excitement in his usually calm eyes. He gestures as if inviting you to witness the next steps. And you feel it. The story deepening, the world shifting, one quiet experiment at a time. You step outside the monastery with Kaldi and the older monk, the three of you moving into the cool midday light. The sun hangs overhead, like a quiet, watchful eye, warm enough to soften the chill that always lingers in the Ethiopian Highlands. You walk slowly, the grass brushing your ankles, the light breeze carrying the faint scent of smoke from the monastery hearth. It mixes with the leftover aroma of the dried berries clinging to your clothes. The goats greet you immediately, bleating with the dramatic energy of creatures who believe every moment is an opportunity for a grand entrance. At least they're no longer vibrating like wind-up toys. They sniff at your hands, probably hoping for more berries, but you gently brush them away. You've all learned what happens when goats have too much caffeine, and no one needs a sequel. You wander toward a flat patch of earth where the monk begins clearing small stones, arranging them in a circle. You kneel beside him, helping to scrape the soil smooth with your palms. Every movement feels unhurried, almost meditative. The ground is warm beneath your fingers, and you feel a little drowsy from the gentle sun and the even gentler proto-coffee you drank earlier. Kaldi gathers more berries, his hands moving automatically now. He spreads them in the cleared space, letting them dry further in the open air. You watch the red skins glisten under the sunlight, bright as tiny jewels scattered across the earth. The breeze rustles their leaves, creating a soft, papery whisper. You breathe in deeply, taking in the simple, earthy scent of drying fruit. The monk sits beside you, lowering his weight slowly, as though settling onto the ground is its own small ritual. He retrieves a flat stone and begins rubbing some of the dried berries against it, applying light pressure. The outer shells crack and crumble, revealing the firm seeds inside, pale, smooth, almost shy. You watch the fragments fall into a neat little pile, each piece delicate enough to blow away with a strong breath. He hands one of the exposed seeds to you. You roll it between your fingertips, feeling its cool, solid texture. You can't taste it yet. Not now. You're not the one to invent roasted coffee. But you are here to witness the spark that will eventually lead someone else to push this little experiment further. Kaldi gestures with excitement as he watches the seeds emerge, like he's discovered some hidden treasure in the berries he originally thought were goat snacks. You smile a little, because it's impossible to not appreciate the charm in his earnest enthusiasm. You lean back on your elbows, letting your gaze drift over the valley below. The landscape sways gently with the wind, a rolling sea of greens and golds. The monk heats another stone over a small fire he's coaxed to life. He sets a few seeds onto the warm surface. They pop softly, a tiny sound, almost bashful, and a thin curl of smoke rises from them. You inhale the scent, faint but surprising. It's different now, toastier, deeper, like the tiniest whisper of the future. You sit up straighter, curiosity tugging you awake. The monk leans in as well, his eyes narrowing with interest. He rotates the seeds gently with a wooden stick, letting each side warm until they darken a shade or two. Not roasted, not really, but changed. He crushes one between two stones, slowly grinding it into coarse bits. You watch them fall into a small clay bowl, each fragment carrying a muted fragrance. Kaldi sniffs the bowl and wrinkles his nose. You laugh, a soft, slow sound, because honestly, you're not impressed either. But there's something fascinating in the process, something comforting in how patient it all feels. You gather more berries from the shrubs along the monastery wall, feeling their smooth skins, their faint stickiness. You walk back and kneel beside the monk again, the three of you forming a small circle around the fire. The light crackles warmly, painting your hands in orange. The monk mixes the crushed seeds with hot water again, swirling it with a carved wooden spoon. You can tell by his calm expression that he knows this isn't the final form, but he's not rushing. He takes a sip anyway, analysing each faint flavour like he's deciphering a hidden message. You lean back, feeling the warmth of the day settle into your bones. The valley stretches out before you, timeless and wide. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the sounds, the fire, the breeze, the distant goats wrap around your mind. When you open them again, the monk is smiling faintly, not because he's found the answer, but because he's found the beginning of a path worth following. And you feel yourself drifting deeper into the story, step by slow step. You walk toward the monastery's shaded courtyard, following the monk as he carries his bowl of crushed seeds and swirling experiments. The courtyard is enclosed by ancient stone walls, thick and cool, covered in small patches of moss that look soft enough to sleep on. You trail your fingers along the wall as you pass, feeling the rough texture ground you in the moment. The monk sets his bowl on a low, carved wooden table at the centre of the courtyard. Sunlight filters through a lattice of vines above, drifting in soft, dappled patches across the stones. You sit on a woven reed mat, repositioning it so you can lean comfortably against one of the pillars. Your body relaxes more with every slow breath. Kaldi enters behind you, carrying a handful of fresh berries. He drops them beside the table and dusts off his hands with dramatic flair, like he's just completed a heroic quest. You give him a tired smile, the kind that takes minimal facial effort. He sits cross-legged with a plop, one of the goats immediately claiming his lap like a seat reserved by destiny. The monk touches the bowl of crushed seeds and lifts it to his nose again. You watch him inhale, thoughtful, then nod to himself. You can tell he's forming ideas, subtle ones, quiet ones, ideas that won't bear fruit until generations later, and yet you feel lucky to be in this exact moment, before coffee becomes coffee. He gestures for you to pick up a few berries. You do, feeling their cool skins in your palm. He motions for you to watch closely as he begins slicing the fresh berries open with a small stone blade. You see the sticky pulp, the clinging seeds, the translucent inner membrane. You lean in as he separates everything gently, careful not to damage what's inside. It's patient work, slow work, the kind of work that creates a trance if you observe it long enough. You place your elbows on your knees, chin resting in your palms, watching him with lazy focus. The sound of distant chanting floats through the air, soft, rhythmic, soothing. The courtyard feels protected from the rest of the world, a small bubble of calm that almost convinces you time has paused. Kaldi hands you a seed he's freed from another berry. You roll it between your fingers again, more familiar with its shape now. You notice its smoothness, the way it catches the light with a faint sheen. You lift it close, curious about how something so simple could someday become the lifeblood of mornings everywhere. The monk arranges the fresh seeds on a flat woven cloth, letting the sun kiss them dry. You watch as he spreads them evenly, every motion deliberate. You appreciate the slowness, not just because it's soothing, but because it mirrors the pace of discovery in this era. No rush, no deadlines, just curiosity wrapped in quiet, careful intention. You lean back, stretching your legs out over the warm stones. A goat wanders toward you and gently nudges your foot, its muzzle surprisingly soft. You scratch under its chin, and it responds with a pleased huff that vibrates through your fingertips. You don't realize how relaxed you are until a tiny yawn escapes. The monk sits across from you and pours a bit of warm water into a clay cup with traces of the crushed seed mixture. He takes another sip and nods, as if confirming a theory only he understands. You watch him think in real time. His eyes drift between the bowl, the seeds, the berries drying in the sun, and the small fire still crackling in the distance. You can almost see the future unfolding behind his gaze. Not the future of the world, but the future of the monks. A future where they'll search for a way to stay awake during long nights of prayer. A future where someone will roast these seeds fully, darkly, boldly. Someone will taste the bitterness that becomes comfort. Someone will brew a drink stronger than anything they've known. But right now, all of that sits quietly in this courtyard, wrapped in possibility. The fire pops softly. A bird croons from a nearby branch, and you feel yourself sinking deeper into the slow, warm, unfolding history of coffee. You walk with the monk toward the monastery's storage rooms, the air inside growing cooler with each step. The hallway smells faintly of dried herbs, old wood, and the distant smoke of a small cooking fire. Your footsteps echo softly against the stone floor, a rhythmic tap that blends with the quiet hum of the monastery. You trail your hand along the wall, feeling the dips where centuries have worn the stone smooth. The monk leads you into a small chamber stacked with woven baskets. Some hold grains, others dried leaves or roots. He rummages through the baskets with slow, practiced movements until he finds a clay pot sealed with wax. He breaks the seal gently and reveals a handful of dark, dried leaves, something the monks already brew for their long nights of chanting. He dips a few into a pot of warm water and hands you the cup, inviting you to taste the tea that came before coffee. You sip slowly. The flavour is soft, grassy and slightly bitter, warming your chest with a familiar herbal comfort. You take another sip, letting it rest on your tongue before swallowing. It's pleasant, but the memory of the strange berry infusion still lingers in your mind. Thin, awkward, but with a hint of something the tea doesn't have. The monk notices your expression. His eyes narrow thoughtfully. He places the cup aside and begins rummaging again, searching for another tool, another clue. He finds a small mortar and pestle, worn and smooth from years of use. He gestures for you to follow him back outside, where Kaldi is now sprawled on his back with 2 goats using him as warm furniture. You laugh under your breath as Kaldi waves lazily, too comfortable to move. The monk sets the mortar on the flat stone and pours a few dried seeds into it, the ones that warmed over the fire earlier. He motions for you to try grinding them. You take the pestle in both hands and lean into the motion, crushing the seeds with steady, slow pressure. The texture changes beneath your touch, shifting from firm to crumbly to coarse powder. A faint scent rises as you work, still weak, but carrying the first hint of the roasted aroma the world will one day adore. You keep grinding, letting the motion become rhythmic, almost hypnotic. The sound is soft, gritty, steady. You feel your shoulders loosen and your breathing deepen. Each press down feels like being pulled further into a calm, ancient ritual. The monk pours hot water over the ground bits again, swirling the mixture until the steam curls upward in thin, sleepy threads. He takes a cautious sip, then hands a cup to you. You try it. The flavour is no richer, no stronger, but there's a subtle shift, a faint edge, a direction. Kaldi leans in for a sip and immediately makes a face, sticking out his tongue dramatically. You laugh again, quietly, because even laughter feels slower in this place. You appreciate the softness of the moment, the way discovery happens not with excitement, but with patient curiosity. The monk begins speaking softly, using gestures to help communicate the idea forming in his mind. You understand enough. He's thinking of heat, more heat, not the gentle warmth of the sun, not the slight heat of a stone warmed by a fire, but something hotter, something transformative. You watch as he stands, gathering wood, arranging it carefully in the fire pit. He adds dried branches, then thicker logs, building a flame larger than before. The fire crackles to life, brighter, warmer, louder. You feel the heat on your skin, a gentle push against your face. He places a shallow metal pan atop the stones surrounding the fire. This you realize is new. The seeds, for the first time, will roast. You sit back, legs stretched out, letting the warmth wash over you. You watch the monk drop a single handful of dried seeds into the pan. He stirs them slowly, carefully, giving them time to warm evenly. You hear tiny pops, quiet, delicate, like distant sparks. A thin tendril of smoke rises from the pan, carrying with it a scent you recognize immediately, even in this earliest form. It's faint, soft, but unmistakably coffee-like. You inhale deeply, letting the warmth and aroma settle into your mind. A moment passes, then the monk looks at you, eyes bright with the smallest spark of discovery. And you know the story is beginning to shift. You sit closer to the fire now, drawn in by the gentle crackle of the wood and the evolving scent rising from the pan. The roasted seeds darken slowly, their edges turning a warm brown. You watch the monk stir them with the careful precision of someone guiding a fragile idea into existence. Every slow circle of his hand feels purposeful, deliberate. You lean in slightly, letting the warmth brush your cheeks. The smell drifting toward you is richer now, still thin, still quiet, but holding a promise the earlier attempts didn't. You feel something settle in your chest, a kind of calm admiration for this slow birth of a drink that will someday be so familiar it becomes invisible to daily life. Kaldi sits beside you, legs stretched straight out, arms propped behind him. The goats curl up near the fire too, their bellies rising and falling in drowsy little breaths. You're all gathered around the heat like witnesses to a small miracle happening at the speed of embers. The monk removes the pan from the fire, letting the seeds cool on a flat stone. You hear the occasional soft crack as the surface tension releases, tiny sounds that get lost in larger centuries later, but right now they feel important. You pick one up between your fingers. It's warm, almost hot, and its surface is darker and shinier than before. Less fruit, more, something else. You hand it to the monk, who nods, then carefully transfers the roasted seeds into the mortar. He motions for you to continue. You begin grinding again, and this time the texture feels different, firmer, richer, carrying an aroma that lifts gently into the air. You close your eyes for a moment, savouring that scent, letting it settle into your senses. When the grounds reach a coarse, uneven texture, the monk pours hot water over them, stirring slowly. His hands move with reverence, or maybe just patience. But something about it feels ceremonial, as though the air itself grows still to watch. The liquid darkens slightly, more than before. Not yet the deep brown of modern coffee, but a shy, early version of it. You feel a small thrill, quiet, warm, as the mixture steeps. Kaldi leans in too far, nearly dipping his nose into the bowl, and you pull him back gently by the sleeve. He snorts in amusement, shaking his head like you're the unreasonable one. The monk pours a small amount into a cup and hands it to you. You wrap your hands around the clay, feeling its warmth spread into your palms. You lift it slowly to your lips and take a cautious sip. This time it's different. Still mild, still thin, still uncertain of itself, but undeniably closer. You swallow, feeling the warmth travel down your throat. The taste lingers, faintly bitter, faintly earthy, with a hint of smokiness that wasn't there before. You nod, slowly, appreciatively. The monk watches your reaction with quiet satisfaction. Kaldi takes a sip next and doesn't grimace this time. He shrugs and gives a small approving nod. Progress. The monk sits back, folding his legs neatly beneath him, and stares into the fire. You watch the reflection of the flames flicker in his eyes, small sparks dancing as he considers the next steps. You can practically hear his thoughts. More heat, longer roasting, finer grinding, different water. The courtyard grows quieter, cushioned by the soft rustle of wind through nearby leaves. A bird chirps a sleepy two-note call, settling somewhere high above. The goats curl together in a small pile of warm fur. You sit among them, the fire's glow wrapping around you as if the story itself is settling closer. You sip again, slower this time, letting the early coffee linger. And you feel the world tilting gently towards something new. You step away from the fire with the monk, stretching your arms as the afternoon breeze sweeps softly through the courtyard. The warmth of your second proto-coffee still lingers in your chest, gentle and comforting, like a small lantern glowing somewhere behind your ribs. You follow the monk toward a shaded walkway lined with wooden beams, the shadows dancing across the ground in quiet patterns. As you walk, the world around you feels suspended, not paused but slowed, as if it understands you're here to drift through history, not rush it. You rest your fingertips on the worn beams as you pass, feeling the grooves carved by countless hands before yours. Kaldi lingers behind, gathering the goats with the herding sounds he's honed over years. A high whistle, a low clicking of his tongue, gentle swishes of his staff against the ground. You smile at how the goats respond, slowly, lazily, as though they've finally embraced life at a calmer speed. The monk stops at a small garden tucked behind the monastery walls. It's simple, patches of herbs, rows of leafy greens, a few berry shrubs, but it carries a stillness that feels almost sacred. You breathe in the scent of basil, mint, and something sweet you can't quite name. Bees drift lazily from flower to flower, unhurried, their gentle buzzing blending with the distant chanting. The monk crouches beside a patch of drying herbs and picks a handful. He crumbles them between his fingers, releasing their aroma. You inhale, letting the scent settle your thoughts even further. He hands you a small leaf and gestures toward your nose, encouraging you to breathe deeply. The scent is warm, almost nutty, a grounding fragrance that reminds you why these monks need stimulants in the first place. Long nights of meditation and prayer require more than resolve. He motions toward the berry shrubs growing along the stone wall. They're not coffee berries, just wild fruit, but he studies them with a contemplative gaze. You understand, he's thinking about flavor, about balance, bitterness, sweetness, aroma. Even if he doesn't have the words for it, you see the gears turning slowly, almost sleepily, in his mind. You kneel beside him, brushing your hands through the leaves. A warm hush settles over the garden, so complete that you hear the soft rustle of your own breath. You glance up at the sky, a pale blue dome with only a few wisps of clouds drifting across like they've got nowhere important to be. The monk plucks a handful of the wild leaves and berries and places them into his pouch. He doesn't intend to mix them with the coffee seeds, not yet, but he wants to understand every plant he uses, every flavor, every possibility. You walk beside him as he returns to the courtyard, the sun starting its slow descent toward the horizon. Back at the fire pit, Kaldi has succeeded in gathering all the goats, though two have climbed onto a rock as if declaring themselves leaders of the group. You settle near the fire again, feeling its warmth seep into your clothes. The monk pours fresh water into a pot and sets it on the flame. He retrieves the roasted seeds, now cool, and grinds them again, faster this time, as though confidence has found its way into his hands. The air fills with a richer aroma, the beginnings of something recognizable. You close your eyes, letting that scent settle into your senses. It's not strong, not bold, but it's finally starting to whisper the language of coffee. The monk pours the grounds into the pot and lets them simmer. Tiny bubbles surface, popping quietly. The smell deepens, weaving into the evening air. You watch as the sky shifts into colors that match the roasted seeds, soft gold, pale brown, warm amber. When the monk finally pours the mixture into a small cup, he hands it to you first. You lift it slowly, savoring the warmth against your palms. You sip. This time there is no mistaking it. It's thin, still primitive, still shy, but undeniably coffee. You swallow, feeling its warmth spread through your chest. The monk gives a slow, satisfied nod. Kaldi grins, and even the goats seem curious, leaning closer. The world feels a little different now, like something new has quietly slipped into it. And you sit there, watching evening settle gently over the valley. The sun dips lower, slipping behind the ridges in slow, graceful movements. Long shadows stretch across the courtyard as the fire begins to glow brighter against the dimming world. You nestle deeper into your spot beside the warm stones, the day's discoveries settling into you like a blanket gently placed across your shoulders. The monk gathers the remaining roasted seeds, storing them in a small clay pot. You watch as he seals it with wax, pressing the warm material carefully with his thumb. He treats the seeds with a kind of reverence, not because he knows the future of coffee, but because he respects anything that shows promise, however small, however humble. You stand and follow as he walks toward the monastery's outer terrace. Kaldi trails behind, goats waddling after him like a flock of sleepy clouds. The terrace overlooks the valley, now washed in a soft, rose-coloured light. You lean your elbows onto the stone railing, feeling its coolness seep into your skin. The monk gestures toward the pot of seeds and begins explaining, through gestures more than words, that he intends to share this discovery with the other monks. You imagine them gathered in the dining hall later, sipping the thin, early brew, contemplating its usefulness in long nights of prayer. You can almost see it, the faint spark of curiosity spreading from one monk to another, then to the next generation, and so on. You sit on the terrace floor, stretching your legs across the smooth, worn stones. The evening wind brushes past your face, carrying with it the scent of the roasted seeds and a hint of wild herbs from the garden. The goats settle around you, forming a warm little cluster at your side. The smallest one nudges your hand until you scratch behind its ear. You oblige, feeling its soft fur under your fingers. Kaldi sits cross-legged beside you, staring out at the valley as though he's trying to imagine the future. If he only knew how many coffee shops would someday hang his name on signs and murals, he'd probably laugh, or maybe panic. You're not sure. The monk returns with a small pot of warm water and pours it over the remaining brewed grounds, making a second weak cup. He hands it to Kaldi, who sips it with exaggerated seriousness. After a long, thoughtful pause, he nods as though delivering a profound judgment. You chuckle quietly, the sound blending with the soft wind. The monk takes the cup next and drinks the last sip, his expression calm but subtly pleased. You sense the moment is special for him, the beginning of an idea he knows he hasn't fully grasped yet, but trusts will grow. The sky deepens into twilight, shifting from pink to lavender to a deepening blue. Stars appear one by one, slow and unhurried. You tilt your head back, watching them gather like tiny lanterns across the sky. A peaceful fatigue settles into your bones, not the kind that demands sleep, but the kind that encourages you to let go of the day's weight. The monk lights a small clay lantern and places it near the terrace wall. Its warm glow flickers, casting gentle shadows across your face and the goat's soft fur. Kaldi hums quietly, a simple tune that blends with the rustling trees below. You sip the last remaining warmth in your cup, letting it coat your throat. It's far from the coffee you know, but it carries the promise of it, a faint, sleepy echo of what's to come. The wind grows cooler, brushing strands of your hair against your cheek. You pull your knees to your chest, resting your chin on them. The world feels slow, deep and quiet, in a way that wraps around you like a cocoon. You glance at the monk, still watching the valley, still thinking, still dreaming in his own soft, contemplative way. You glance at Kaldi, already nodding off, goats leaning against him, forming a warm pile of wool and contentment. And you feel it, the story settling into its next chapter, waiting gently, patiently, peacefully. You wake the next morning before the sun fully rises, though you're not sure what woke you. The soft bleating of goats, the distant call of a morning bell, or simply the quiet shift of dawn stirring against your eyelids. You sit up slowly, rubbing your neck, realizing you fell asleep on the terrace with Kaldi and his goats nestled around you like living blankets. They blink at you sleepily, ears twitching, but none seem motivated to move. Fair enough. The sky is still pale, washed in the faintest shades of early lavender and soft blue. A low mist curls around the edges of the valley, drifting like steam rising from a giant cup of warm milk. The cool morning air brushes against your face, waking you gently, the way a sleepy cat might pat your cheek instead of meowing. Kaldi stretches beside you with a dramatic groan, rubbing his eyes like a child waking from a nap. He squints toward the monastery buildings where the monks are already beginning their morning routines. You follow his gaze. Figures in simple robes move quietly through the courtyards, carrying baskets, lighting lanterns, opening shutters. Everything happens slowly here, peacefully, as though the world itself decided to whisper until noon. The monk from yesterday approaches with a small wooden tray. On it sits a pot of warm water, a bowl of yesterday's roasted grounds, and a fresh, empty cup. You blink in surprise. They've already begun treating the drink like part of the morning ritual. Not officially, maybe. Not yet. But curiosity has a way of turning into tradition faster than anyone expects. The monk kneels and pours the water over the grounds. The aroma rises instantly, richer than you remember. You inhale deeply, letting the steam warm your nose. It's still thin, still early in its evolution, but something in it has changed, as though the night gave it time to strengthen ever so slightly. He hands you the first cup. You wrap both hands around it, absorbing its warmth. You take a slow sip. Yes, this version is slightly fuller, just barely, but enough to make you pause, enough to make you believe something bigger is taking shape. Kaldi leans forward, chin in his hands, waiting for his share. The monk hands him the second cup without hesitation. He takes a sip, pauses, nods dramatically as always. The goats sniff the air and sneeze in unison. You laugh quietly, the sound blending with the soft rustle of the morning wind. The monk gestures for you to follow him. You stand, stretching your back, and walk alongside him across the courtyard. He leads you to the storage room again, where more seeds, raw, unroasted, are stored. He holds up a handful and studies them carefully. You see the idea forming again behind his eyes. He wants to roast more, experiment, explore. You help gather a few handfuls into a basket and carry them to the outer courtyard where the fire pit waits like an old friend. The monk builds a fresh fire with practiced patience, arranging the logs just so. Flames lick upward slowly, gaining strength in a lazy, steady rhythm. When the pan heats, he pours the seeds into it and begins the familiar stirring motion. You watch the transformation happen again, pale seeds turning golden, then deeper, then darker. The warm scent intensifies, coaxing the air around you into a gentle coziness that feels almost like home. Kaldi appears with fresh goat milk in a small jug, offering it like some kind of early barista contribution. You raise an eyebrow. The monk takes the jug politely but sets it aside. "Not yet," his gesture says. "First we learn the seed." You sit beside the fire, watching the smoke rise in elegant ribbons. The seeds crackle softly, and the aroma deepens into that unmistakable early coffee scent. You close your eyes, inhaling, letting the warmth wrap around you. When the monk finally grinds the roasted seeds, the sound is comforting, gritty, steady, rhythmic. You could fall back asleep just listening to it, but you stay awake, entranced by the small ritual unfolding before your eyes. He pours hot water over the grounds again, this time letting them sit a little longer. When he hands you the cup, you sip carefully. The flavour blooms a little more fully this time, still simple, still young, but slowly finding its voice. You sit back, letting the morning unfold around you as the first true threads of coffee begin to weave themselves into history. You spend the rest of the morning helping the monk experiment. It feels less like work and more like drifting through a quiet dream filled with firelight, herbs, and patient curiosity. You gather sticks for the fire, fetch fresh water from the well, and watch as the monk adjusts the roasting time little by little. Each small change shifts the aroma in subtle ways, like learning the personality of a musical instrument by plucking each string gently. Kaldi contributes enthusiastically, though contributes might be an overstatement. Mostly he holds things, sniffs them, or hands them to the goats for their unsolicited opinions. Still, his energy adds a kind of lively charm to the otherwise meditative process. You watch the monk roast a batch slightly longer than before. The seeds darken more deeply, taking on a richer shine. This time, as he grinds them, the aroma unfurls into something unmistakably familiar. Not yet modern coffee, but far closer than anything you've tasted so far. He gestures for you to smell, and you lean in, closing your eyes as the scent drifts upward. It's earthy, warm, slightly smoky. Something inside you stirs, as though your mind recognizes the scent before the world does. When he pours the hot water over the grounds, the air around you shifts. The mixture darkens more quickly, swirling into a deeper, more confident shade. You wait, holding your breath without meaning to, until he pours a small amount into your cup. You sip, and for the first time, you feel the quiet early spark of what coffee will one day become. It's subtle, just a gentle lift, a soft awakening behind your eyes, but it's there, like a whisper in a language you somehow understand. You look up at the monk. He sees it in your expression. He knows. He sips next, and you watch as his eyebrows lift ever so slightly. A small, slow smile creeps across his face. Not triumphant, not excited, just quietly pleased, as though a puzzle piece has clicked into place. Kaldi sips too, then nods very seriously, the goats gathering around him like a panel of sleepy judges. You laugh again, feeling the warmth of the moment settle the morning into a soft harmony. The monk continues experimenting, roasting some seeds lightly, others darker, grinding some finely and others coarsely. Each variation brings a new nuance to the air. You help with every step, learning the rhythm of the process until your hands begin to move with a calm familiarity. At one point, the monk roasts the seeds a bit too long, and the smell shifts to something sharp, too bitter, too burnt. You and Kaldi cough in unison, waving smoke from your faces. The monk nods thoughtfully as if taking mental notes. Even mistakes feel peaceful here, softened by the slow pace of discovery. You sit in the shade with Kaldi while the monk fetches more water. The goats lie beside you, warm and heavy, their breaths slow. The wind rustles through the leaves overhead, the sound like a lullaby whispered by the trees. You realize, as you sit there in the quiet, that you're watching history unfold not with excitement or grandeur, but with tenderness, with patience, with a warmth that hums gently under every moment. The monk returns with fresh water, ready to continue. And you feel yourself sinking even deeper into the gentle rhythm of this place, into the slow, subtle story of how coffee, quite by accident, begins to wake the world. You rest against the courtyard wall as afternoon sunlight drapes itself lazily across the ground, warming the stones until they're almost comfortable enough to nap on. The monk sits nearby, sorting through another basket of raw seeds with the calm precision of someone who has no intention of rushing through life. Kaldi sprawls out on his stomach, chin propped on his hands, watching the seeds as if they're characters in the world's quietest play. The goats, already embracing mid-afternoon drowsiness, lie in a fluffy pile of warm fur beside you. One of them snores softly, the others rising and falling with its rhythm like waves in a tiny, cozy ocean. You reach out and run your fingers through the fur of the nearest one. The goat leans into your hand, not fully awake but aware enough to appreciate the affection. The monk lifts a small handful of seeds and gestures for you to smell them before roasting. They carry the same soft, grassy scent you've come to recognize, a scent that feels like morning dew on leaves, like the beginning of things rather than their final form. You inhale deeply, letting the aroma settle somewhere deep in your mind before nodding. He places the seeds into the pan again and begins roasting them. The fire crackles gently, as though humming to itself. You watch as the seeds change color slowly, patiently, as the monk stirs the pan in wide, steady circles. It's hypnotic, the rhythm, the warmth, the soft crackling, all of it blending into a lullaby composed by quiet flame. You sit beside the fire and feel its heat on your arms, a comforting embrace against the cool afternoon breeze. The seeds begin to pop lightly, releasing a warm, earthy aroma that slips into the air like a soft sigh. You close your eyes and breathe it in, appreciating how far the smell has come from those first awkward attempts. Kaldi inches closer, his face scrunched in concentration as though he's memorizing every detail of the process. He leans so close that a goat tugs gently at his tunic, pulling him back as though appointed guardian of common sense. You laugh quietly as he nearly topples over, saved only by the goat's accidental intervention. When the seeds reach a warm brown color, the monk pulls them from the fire and spreads them over a flat stone to cool. You help by fanning them gently with a woven leaf, though the action feels more symbolic than useful. The seeds crackle softly as they cool, tiny sounds that blend seamlessly into the quiet hum of the afternoon. The monk grinds the seeds once more, his hands moving with the comfortable familiarity of someone who has repeated this motion enough that it's become a form of meditation. You watch as the grounds darken and release that rich, warm aroma that feels like a faraway echo of modern coffee shops. He pours hot water over the grounds, swirling the mixture with slow, careful movements. You sit closer now, drawn in by the deepening scent, the growing promise. When he hands you the cup, you cradle it gently, feeling the warmth radiate through your fingers. You take a sip, This version is noticeably stronger, still simple, still unrefined, but with more character. A slight bitterness edges onto your tongue, balanced by a hint of earthy sweetness. Your eyelids soften, your shoulders loosen. You exhale slowly, the warmth blooming inside you like a quiet sunrise. The monk sips next and nods with subtle approval. Kaldi drinks his portion with exaggerated ceremony, then presses the empty cup to his forehead dramatically as if blessing it. You roll your eyes affectionately and lightly nudge him with your elbow. The monk's chanting drifts through the courtyard, low, melodic, hypnotic. The sound weaves itself through the air, blending with the warmth of the fire and the earthy scent of roasted seeds. The goats nestle closer, drawn by the soft vibrations and gentle heat. You lie back on the warm stone, watching clouds drift lazily across the sky. They move like slow breaths, stretching and folding in the breeze. You close your eyes, letting the world soften around you, letting the story unfold at its own unhurried pace. Somewhere nearby, the monk prepares another batch of seeds. And the day drifts on, guided by firelight, curiosity, and the earliest whispers of coffee. You follow the monk into the monastery's kitchen, a space warmed by gentle sunlight and the quiet clatter of morning preparations lingering into midday. The air carries the comforting smell of baked bread, simmering vegetables, and faint traces of herbs drying on hanging ropes. You inhale deeply, letting the aromas swirl around you like the soft embrace of a memory you've never actually lived. Two other monks work quietly at a long wooden table. One chops greens with slow, deliberate motions, the other kneads dough with a rhythm that seems almost meditative. Both glance up curiously when you enter with the monk and Kaldi trailing behind you, goats shuffling in as though the kitchen is simply an extension of their living room. The monk sets the clay pot of roasted grounds on the table. The other monks lean in, eyebrows raised slightly, their faces soft with intrigue. The aroma still lingers around the pot, whispering of something new, something interesting, something quietly energizing. The monk gestures for you to sit at the wooden bench. Kaldi plops down beside you, elbows on the table, chin in hands, grinning like he's about to witness a grand performance. The goats gather around your legs, hooves gently clicking against the stone floor. The monk heats water over the small kitchen fire, pouring it into a ceramic pot already holding the grounds. The mixture darkens quickly, the scent drifting into the warm kitchen air and mingling with the smell of bread. You watch the subtle reactions on the monks' faces, slight widening of eyes, softening of expression, tiny nods of approval. He pours small servings into simple cups and distributes them. You feel oddly honored to be part of the moment, not as an audience member, but as someone watching an unseen thread connect people who've never tasted anything like this before. You take your sip. It's smooth, richer than earlier, though still shy and unsure of itself. But something about tasting it in this warm kitchen, surrounded by the sounds of soft chopping and kneading, makes it feel fuller, like it's finally finding its place. One monk takes a sip and raises an eyebrow, another closes his eyes thoughtfully. The one kneading dough pauses, his hands still resting in the soft mound of flour and yeast, before leaning forward slightly to inhale the aroma again. Kaldi drinks his entire portion in a single gulp, then immediately holds out his cup for more. You gently swat his arm before the monk has a chance to indulge him. Kaldi pouts, but the goats seem to sympathize and nuzzle him consolingly. The monks begin asking questions. You can't understand the words, but their gestures paint the picture. Where did this come from? How did they make it? Are there more of these seeds? The monk explains with a calm smile, pointing toward the valley, toward Kaldi, toward you. It's a strange moment, watching yourself be accidentally involved in the earliest stages of a drink that will someday circle the globe. You sit back and observe the monks as they take another collective sip, their faces serene but curious. They discuss the flavor in soft tones, hands moving in thoughtful gestures. You feel the kitchen warming even further, not from the fire but from the subtle excitement settling over the room. The monk sets the pot down gently, as though acknowledging that something important, something effortless yet meaningful, just happened. The other monks nod in agreement, carrying their cups as they return to their tasks. The aroma of early coffee mingles with the steady kneading of dough, the rhythm of chopping, the rustle of drying herbs. You rest your elbow on the table, feeling your body relax into the kitchen's steady hum. And you realize this moment, simple, warm, unhurried, is one of the first true gatherings shaped around coffee. A quiet beginning of a ritual the world will someday know intimately. You follow the monk into the monastery's kitchen, a space warmed by gentle sunlight and the quiet clatter of morning preparations lingering into midday. The air carries the comforting smell of baked bread, simmering vegetables, and faint traces of herbs drying on hanging ropes. You inhale deeply, letting the aromas swirl around you like the soft embrace of a memory you've never actually lived. Two other monks work quietly at a long wooden table. One chops greens with slow, deliberate motions. The other kneads dough with a rhythm that seems almost meditative. Both glance up curiously when you enter with the monk, and Kaldi, trailing behind you. Goats shuffling in as though the kitchen is simply an extension of their living room. The monk sets the clay pot of roasted grounds on the table. The other monks lean in, eyebrows raised slightly, their faces soft with intrigue. The aroma still lingers around the pot, whispering of something new, something interesting, something quietly energizing. The monk gestures for you to sit at the wooden bench. Kaldi plops down beside you, elbows on the table, chin in hands, grinning like he's about to witness a grand performance. The goats gather around your legs, hooves gently clicking against the stone floor. The monk heats water over the small kitchen fire, pouring it into a ceramic pot already holding the grounds. The mixture darkens quickly, the scent drifting into the warm kitchen air and mingling with the smell of bread. You watch the subtle reactions on the monks' faces, slight widening of eyes, softening of expression, tiny nods of approval. He pours small servings into simple cups and distributes them. You feel oddly honoured to be part of the moment, not as an audience member, but as someone watching an unseen thread connect people who've never tasted anything like this before. You take your sip. It's smooth, richer than earlier, though still shy and unsure of itself. But something about tasting it in this warm kitchen, surrounded by the sounds of soft chopping and kneading, makes it feel fuller, like it's finally finding its place. One monk takes a sip and raises an eyebrow. Another closes his eyes thoughtfully. The one kneading dough pauses, his hands still resting in the soft mound of flour and yeast, before leaning forward slightly to inhale the aroma again. Kaldi drinks his entire portion in a single gulp, then immediately holds out his cup for more. You gently swat his arm before the monk has a chance to indulge him. Kaldi pouts, but the goats seem to sympathize and nuzzle him consolingly. The monks begin asking questions. You can't understand the words, but their gestures paint the picture. Where did this come from? How did they make it? Are there more of these seeds? The monk explains with a calm smile, pointing toward the valley, toward Kaldi, toward you. It's a strange moment, watching yourself be accidentally involved in the earlier stages of a drink that will someday circle the globe. You sit back and observe the monks as they take another collective sip, their faces serene but curious. They discuss the flavour in soft tones, hands moving in thoughtful gestures. You feel the kitchen warming even further, not from the fire but from the subtle excitement settling over the room. The monk sets the pot down gently, as though acknowledging that something important, something effortless yet meaningful, just happened. The other monks nod in agreement, carrying their cups as they return to their tasks. The aroma of early coffee mingles with the steady kneading of dough, the rhythm of chopping, the rustle of drying herbs. You rest your elbow on the table, feeling your body relax into the kitchen's steady hum. And you realize this moment, simple, warm, unhurried, is one of the first true gatherings shaped around coffee. A quiet beginning of a ritual the world will someday know intimately. You step out of the kitchen with Kaldi and the monk, the warm aroma of early coffee still curling through the air behind you, like a gentle ribbon. The courtyard greets you with soft sunlight, the kind that doesn't demand anything from you. It simply rests on your skin, warm and patient. A few birds hop along the stone path, pecking curiously at invisible crumbs. their tiny movements adding a delicate rhythm to the quiet afternoon. Kaldi stretches his arms high above his head, letting out a sound somewhere between a sigh and a yawn. The goats follow him, of course, waddling lazily with that confident little strut only goats seem to have. You trail behind them, feeling your steps sink into the story as if you've walked these paths for years. The monk leads you toward the inner garden again, where sunlight filters through leaves and paints soft gold patches across the ground. You sit with your back against a sun-warmed wall. Kaldi flops beside you, already picking blades of grass and braiding them absent-mindedly. The goats circle once, twice, then settle into a pile beside you like warm, fuzzy cushions. The monk kneels to inspect the berry shrubs along the wall. His eyes scan the leaves, the soil, the colour of the fruit, always searching, always thinking. He plucks a berry, rolls it between his fingers, and gestures toward the seeds resting in the basket. You understand what he's considering: environment, flavour, how different soils, different sun, different water might shape the seed's potential. You find it oddly calming, witnessing discovery not as an explosion of excitement, but as a slow unravelling, a gentle realisation that something small might matter. That patience itself might be part of the invention. The monk motions for you to follow him farther into the valley. You rise slowly, brushing dust from your clothes, and walk down a narrow dirt path lined with low stone walls. The wind sings softly as it moves through the grass, carrying faint hints of earth and dried herbs. Kaldi walks ahead, narrating a story you don't fully understand, but his gestures are large and dramatic enough that you catch the gist. Goats dancing on rooftops, goats sneaking into nobles' gardens, goats getting into trouble. You nod along, amused by his animation. His joy is infectious, a bright thread weaving through the understated calm of this place. The monk stops at a shady spot beneath a scattering of young trees. He kneels and digs into the soil with his hands, turning it over thoughtfully. You crouch beside him, touching the cool dirt. It crumbles softly between your fingers, rich, dark, full of life. You can feel how it might shape whatever grows here. He places a few raw seeds gently into the ground, covering them with a thin layer of soil. You blink, surprised. Coffee seedlings, the very earliest, smallest attempt at growing something that will one day stretch across continents. It feels strangely emotional, watching something begin so humbly, with no idea of the world it will someday wake. Kaldi plants a seed too, though his technique is enthusiastically chaotic. The goats immediately try to dig it back up, forcing him to shoo them away with indignant sounds that echo through the valley. You sit back on your heels and look around. The landscape stretches into soft rolling hills, warm and open. The sky arches high and pale, drifting toward late afternoon. Everything feels unhurried, suspended, gently held in the cradle of its own simplicity. The monk stands and dusts his hands, then gestures for everyone to head back. As you walk, you glance over your shoulder at the little mound of dark soil. It looks like nothing special, just a patch of earth beneath a young tree. But you know better. You walk on slowly, letting the moment root itself in your memory like the first seed in the ground. You return to the monastery courtyard as the sun begins its slow descent, tinting the world in soft amber hues. The shadows stretch long and thin across the stones, and the air carries a coolness that suggests evening is quietly slipping into place. A monk rings a small bell near the entrance, its tone gentle, unhurried, more of a suggestion than a command. Kaldi leads the goats toward a grassy patch near the wall where they settle instantly, as though someone pressed a relax button on all of them at once. You sit beside them, feeling the warmth of the day, slowly leaving the stones beneath you. The monk settles on a low bench, organising the remaining roasted grounds and tools with deliberate care. The soft murmur of the monastery surrounds you, footsteps shuffling across the stones, hands brushing linen robes, quiet greetings exchanged in the low, melodic tones you've grown to love. Everything here seems designed to move at half speed in the best possible way. The monk brings out a new pot and sets it near the fire pit. He gathers fresh water, letting it flow from a clay jug with a soft, steady trickle. You watch the surface ripple gently, the sound mingling with the distant rustle of wind through the trees. He gestures for you to come closer. You sit beside him, crossing your legs, the fire warming your knees. He pours a small amount of yesterday's roasted grounds into the pot, then pauses, thinking. He reaches for a small pinch of the herbs you smelled earlier, not enough to overpower anything, just enough to see what happens. A curious whisper of flavour. You smile. Experimentation never sleeps here, not even in the quiet hours of dusk. The water darkens as it heats, swirling in slow spirals. You lean over the pot, letting the steam brush your face gently. The aroma that rises feels deeper now, more rounded, softened by the herbs, but not changed beyond recognition. It smells like evening itself, warm, earthy, a little dreamy. Kaldi drags himself over, half laying on the ground, chin resting on his hands. His goats gather behind him like a fan club. He inhales dramatically, eyes widening. The monk pours the brew into small cups again. He hands one to you first. You wrap your hands around it, appreciating the warmth in the cooling air. You sip. The flavour is different, mild, comforting, soothing, less bitter, more earthy. It tastes like something the monks might actually drink during their quiet evening rituals, not for energy but for warmth, for grounding. Kaldi sips his and gives a thoughtful nod, then two more nods for emphasis. The goats blink in approval, or maybe they're just sleepy. It's hard to tell with goats. You sit back and watch as the sky deepens into a soft wash of blues and purples. A single star appears overhead, shy at first, then joined by another. The world grows quieter still, as though settling into its slow nighttime rhythm. The monk sits beside you, cup in hand. His posture is relaxed, his expression serene. You imagine him thinking about the seeds planted earlier, about what they might become. You feel grateful to witness this moment, simple, warm, understated. One of the first true evenings shaped by the presence of early coffee. You sip the last of your cup, savouring its gentle warmth as it fades into your chest. The air cools around you, the fire crackles softly, the goats shift closer, like warm drifting clouds. And the night, in its quiet patience, settles softly around all of you. The next morning, you awaken to a soft drizzle pattering against the monastery's tiled roofs, a gentle percussion that urges you to stay put just a little longer. The courtyard glistens with wet stone, and the leaves of the nearby trees droop under the tender weight of the rain. Kaldi is already awake, wandering through the dewy grass, his goats trailing behind him like a sleepy parade. You pull your robe tighter around your shoulders and step outside, the cool droplets kissing your skin and reminding you that mornings are never truly rushed here. The monks move quietly through their early routines, their footsteps deliberate, almost ceremonious. You notice a small boy carrying a bundle of firewood, carefully balancing it against his chest, his robe slightly too long, causing him to stumble occasionally. He corrects himself without complaint, straightening the bundle and giving a faint, resigned sigh, as if accepting that life itself is a gentle teacher. The air smells of wet earth and faint smoke from the morning fires, a combination that feels grounding and oddly luxurious. Kaldi nudges you toward the granary, where sacks of unroasted coffee beans lie untouched. The berries glimmer with the soft rain, each one holding the promise of potential energy. Not the jolting, frantic kind, but the subtle, coaxing lift that awakens thoughts slowly, carefully, as if the mind itself is sipping before it fully stirs. You kneel beside the sacks, feeling the rough texture of burlap under your fingers, the dampness adding a surprising richness. The beans themselves are dense, round, heavy with possibility, and you can almost hear the whispered tales of the distant lands they came from. The monk from yesterday joins you, his expression as calm as a lake at dawn. Today, he murmurs, we see if the morning sun has changed anything in our little experiment. He lifts a handful of beans, rolling them in his palm, and you realise he treats them almost like small treasures, not raw materials. You feel the same way, appreciating the slowness of this moment, the quiet dedication that seems to infuse the very air you breathe. He begins to prepare the beans for roasting, building a small fire with wet wood that sizzles and hisses as the moisture escapes. The aroma rises almost immediately, earthy and tender, blending with the scent of rain on stone. Kaldi sniffs dramatically, one ear flicking, and you can't help but laugh softly at the absurdity and simplicity of it all. Life, it seems, can be both profound and silly at the same time, especially in the quiet hours of the morning. As the beans darken, you watch their colour deepen like the sky before a storm passes. Steam rises in soft tendrils, curling and twisting in slow, deliberate dances. The monk pours water into a clay pot, letting it warm near the coals, and you notice how every action is measured, almost ritualistic. Nothing here is rushed, every movement is infused with the calm purpose of someone who knows that haste can ruin the subtle art of discovery. You sip the first cup of morning brew, letting it coat your tongue with its gentle warmth. The flavour is mild but intricate, a whisper of earth and rain, a touch of something you can't name but recognise as belonging to this place. Kaldi nudges the cup toward you, as if reminding you to savour the moment, not just the beverage. Around you, the courtyard remains hushed, rain dripping rhythmically, the monastery breathing slowly with the world. Time stretches, you lose track of it. Each sip seems to slow the universe down by fractions, coaxing the mind into a soft, alert drowsiness that is neither fatigue nor restlessness, but a patient, waiting kind of awareness. And in this slow awakening, you begin to understand why this accidental drink might one day mean so much, not because it jolts or shakes, but because it whispers, ever so gently, the secrets of attentiveness, patience, and quiet delight. By late morning, the rain has tapered into a fine mist that clings to everything like a whisper. You follow Kaldi to the small garden behind the monastery, where the monks cultivate herbs and vegetables, their growth nurtured by patience more than effort. The soil is soft beneath your feet, dark and fragrant, and the tiny leaves glisten with droplets, each one catching the light like a miniature lantern. The goats wander among the garden rows, nibbling carefully, selective as if they too appreciate the slow rhythm of life. The monk begins to explain the next phase of the experiment, speaking in the gentle cadence that seems to match the mist itself. The brewing process, he says, is like a conversation. You do not shout, you listen. You do not rush. You allow the flavours to speak. You nod, intrigued, and not just because of the science of it, but because it feels like a metaphor for everything around you. The courtyard, the mist, the goats, even the way the rain lingers in the air. Kaldi watches the ritual with solemn curiosity, occasionally nudging a bean or sniffing the steam, clearly judging it with the seriousness of someone who has spent his life evaluating small wonders. You watch him and realise that learning, whether you are human or goat, requires a kind of patience that most of the world seems to have forgotten. Everything here demands attention, but in a way that feels almost indulgent, as if noticing the minutiae is a gift, not a chore. The monk carefully pours hot water over the roasted beans, the liquid darkening slowly, thickening with aroma, curling into the air with gentle insistence. The sound is quiet, almost imperceptible, like a whispered secret. You lean in, noticing the texture of the liquid, the way it captures the essence of the bean, the earth, the rain, and the slow, thoughtful morning. The first sip warms your chest with a calm insistence, like a soft exhale after holding your breath for too long. You wander a bit, letting your gaze drift over the monastery walls, the damp stones reflecting the soft light, the ivy crawling lazily upward. Each sound a distant bell, a goat's bleat, the monk's quiet movement seems magnified, as if clarity itself comes from paying attention slowly. You think about how this drink, this gentle, accidental creation, has the power not just to awaken the body but to teach a subtle lesson in mindfulness, an unspoken reminder to move through life with careful, deliberate grace. The monks move around you, hands steady, eyes calm, each gesture unhurried yet precise. The garden, the courtyard, the very stones of the monastery seem to pulse with a slow, soothing rhythm, one that is both grounding and hypnotic. Kaldi stretches, flopping onto the wet grass, content and unbothered, embodying the same serene awareness that surrounds you. You breathe in, letting the mist, the coffee, the damp earth fill your senses, each element blending into a gentle symphony of subtle delight. Hours could pass like this, and you would hardly notice. Each sip, each glance, each faint sound carries weight in the quiet harmony of the morning. And in this soft, accidental harmony, you find yourself learning not just about beans and brewing, but about patience, presence, and the understated joy of noticing the world as it slowly, insistently becomes. By midday, the mist has lifted, leaving the courtyard sparkling with droplets that cling stubbornly to every surface. The sun peeks through high clouds, spilling a pale, diffuse light that seems more interested in lingering than in shining. You wander toward the monastery's small library, drawn by the faint scent of parchment and ink, a quiet promise that knowledge exists here not in haste, but in the slow unfolding of time. The books are stacked unevenly, leaning slightly as if tired from years of use. Each one carries the whisper of fingers past, the ghost of careful hands turning pages slowly, savouring words that demand attention. You pull one from the shelf, the leather cover soft, worn in the edges, and open it. The script inside is meticulous, looping, human in a way that feels deliberate, unhurried, like the monks themselves. You trace the letters with your finger absent-mindedly, as if your touch could pull the words into reality. Kaldi ambles in, brushing past your legs with gentle insistence. The goats follow, filling the space with quiet shuffles and occasional low hums, reminding you that life is not confined to ink and parchment. The monk from yesterday joins you, settling on the floor cross-legged, a small pile of beans at his side. He gestures for you to pour some water into the small clay pot he's arranged. The ritual continues, but now it feels deeper, more intimate, as if the simple act of brewing is intertwined with centuries of subtle observation. As the coffee darkens, you watch the steam rise in slow, curling spirals, each one distinct yet fleeting. The aroma is richer than before, carrying hints of the damp earth outside, of herbs from the garden, and something indefinably human, the warmth of care and attentiveness. You lift the cup, inhaling deeply, letting the smell settle into your chest like a memory you never knew you needed. Sitting quietly, you notice the interplay of light and shadow across the library floor. Sunlight catches a floating dust mote, highlighting it as though it were performing a deliberate dance. A breeze stirs the pages of a nearby book, producing a sound like a sigh. You realize that this moment, these small, seemingly insignificant details, feels more substantial than anything else you've encountered all day. The world is insisting you slow down, insisting that observation is a form of meditation. Kaldi nudges the monk's hand, as if reminding him to continue. The monk chuckles softly, a dry, quiet sound that fits perfectly with the muted library ambiance. He pours the first cup of the new batch for you, and you wrap your hands around it, feeling warmth seep into your fingers, up your arms, and finally settling in your chest. The flavour is more pronounced now, slightly bitter yet mellow, earthy and comforting, a drink that teaches without words. You take a slow sip, allowing the liquid to linger, appreciating the way it carries the day's rain, the soil, and the patient attention of countless monks who preceded you. Outside, the goats bleat softly, reminding you that life exists in simple pleasures too, that discovery is not always monumental. Sometimes it is a taste, a scent, or a quiet gaze shared with a companion. You smile. There is something profoundly human in this slow, accidental communion with coffee, a shared ritual that requires nothing but patience and presence. The afternoon stretches before you like the gentle bough of a tree branch, bending under the weight of time. You drink, you observe, you allow yourself to be pulled into the quiet rhythm of the monastery. In this small library, surrounded by books and beans and the soft hum of life, the world seems to pause just long enough for you to understand that history, much like this accidental beverage, unfolds at its own pace, revealing itself only to those willing to wait. As the sun arcs higher and begins its slow descent toward the horizon, you follow Kaldi and the monk into the small courtyard garden. The plants glisten under the late afternoon light, their leaves shining like tiny emerald mirrors. The rainwater collected in shallow puddles reflects the sky in soft wavering ripples, and you find yourself captivated by the gentle distortion, the world bending but not breaking, moving but not rushing. The monk begins another round of roasting, carefully tending to each bean with patience honed over countless mornings. You lean close, inhaling the earthy aroma, feeling it seep into your senses, grounding you, connecting you to this place, to its slow, deliberate rhythms. Kaldi sprawls nearby, belly flat against the cool stone, chin resting lazily on his front hooves. Even the goats have adopted the same quiet attentiveness, as though aware that the world is better observed than acted upon. You take a moment to notice the subtle details around you, the way droplets cling to the fine hairs on Kaldi's back, the soft hum of bees moving from flower to flower, the distant laughter of a monk guiding a novice in some forgotten task. Life here is a patchwork of gentle observation, each fragment a note in a soft, sprawling symphony. You realize that the accident of coffee, its discovery, its careful experimentation, mirrors this natural rhythm. It is small, unassuming, yet profoundly influential, its influence unfolding slowly, imperceptibly, over time. The monk pours hot water over the roasted beans, the dark liquid slowly curling upward in delicate steam tendrils. You lean in, letting the aroma wrap around your senses like a woolen blanket. Each sip now carries layers of meaning: the earth, the rain, the human patience that nurtures and observes, the simple joy of sharing a moment with someone who moves at the same deliberate pace. Kaldi snorts softly, nudging a fallen bean toward you. You laugh, accepting it, marveling at the simplicity of shared experience. The silent conversation between human and goat, monk and apprentice, observer and world. The garden feels suspended in time. The air is dense with warmth and scent, yet light enough to make every movement a gentle revelation. You notice the subtle colours of the plants, the texture of the soil, the interplay of light across each leaf. The experience is meditative, hypnotic, each moment flowing into the next without haste, each small observation a thread weaving you into the fabric of this accidental history. As the afternoon wanes, you feel a deep, quiet contentment. There is no rush, no urgency, only the slow unfolding of discovery and understanding. The coffee, once merely a curiosity, has become a companion in this soft, attentive rhythm. You sip again, feeling the warmth settle into your chest, a gentle pulse that seems to sync with the world around you. Time seems to dilate. The courtyard, the library, the beans, the mist, the goats, all exist in perfect, unhurried harmony. You realize that the accidental invention of coffee was never about speed or intensity. It was about patience, observation, and the subtle joy of noticing life in its quiet, unassuming moments. And in this realization, you find a calm that feels permanent, an understanding that some of history's greatest influences begin in the softest, slowest ways. Evening begins its slow descent, stretching shadows across the monastery walls and turning the courtyard stones a deep, muted grey. You follow Kaldi and the monk toward the small fire pit near the garden, where another round of beans awaits roasting. The air is cooler now, carrying the faint scent of damp earth and smouldering wood. Each breath feels deliberate, grounding you, slowing your heartbeat to match the quiet rhythm of the world around you. Kaldi drags himself lazily over to a soft patch of grass, flopping down with an exaggerated sigh that seems almost human. The goats cluster around him, forming a drifting circle of warmth and soft fur. You find yourself sitting nearby, knees tucked under your chin, watching the monk prepare the beans with a meticulous calm. Every motion, from selecting the beans to pouring the water, is deliberate, almost ceremonial, yet not ostentatious. It's the quiet artistry of someone who understands that patience can transform even the simplest tasks into something extraordinary. The beans crackle lightly as the heat reaches them, the aroma curling into the evening air like a gentle invitation. You lean closer, savouring the scent, earthy, warm, slightly sweet with an underlying bite. Each inhale feels like a small meditation, centering you, reminding you to notice the smallest details, the way the light shifts across the wet leaves, the soft rustle of the wind through the ivy, the rhythmic blink of a goat's eye. The monk begins pouring hot water over the roasted beans, the dark liquid swirling in the clay pot, releasing steam that twists and rises in delicate tendrils. You wrap your hands around a small cup, feeling the warmth seep slowly into your skin. The first sip is comforting. Grounding it moves like a whisper through your chest, coaxing your thoughts into a slower, softer rhythm. You notice how different this coffee is from the one you've known before. Gentler, more rounded, a quiet companion to the evening, rather than a jolt to the morning. Kaldi nudges a bean toward you, as if to remind you that life, even in its quietest moments, is shared. You laugh softly, accepting it, feeling a subtle joy in the simple connection. Around you, the courtyard hums with gentle life, the wind brushing against the trees, the faint scrape of a monk's sandals on stone, the occasional bleat from the goats. Everything moves at half speed, yet none of it feels diminished. The slowing down amplifies rather than diminishes the significance of each detail. The monk gestures for you to sit closer. You lean in, observing his hands as he stirs the brew, the careful motions transferring a kind of quiet wisdom. You realize that the coffee itself is secondary to this ritual, that the slow attention, the mindful observation, is what transforms a simple drink into a small miracle. It is not the caffeine, not the heat, not even the flavor, but the patience, the noticing, the gentle care woven into each step. You sip again, letting the warmth settle into your chest, feeling the calm spread through your limbs. Kaldi flops his head onto your knee for a moment, the goat's soft warmth and slow breathing reinforcing the sense of groundedness. Outside, the first stars blink faintly into existence, shy and deliberate, as if they too are participating in this unhurried evening. Time stretches, pliable and gentle, allowing you to dwell fully in the moment. The monastery, the garden, the beans, the goats, all coalesce into a quiet symphony of subtle awareness. And in this, you feel a deep understanding. The accidental invention of coffee was never just about drink, it was about observation, patience, and the soft joy of noticing the world unfold slowly, deliberately, in all its unassuming complexity. By late morning, the sun has warmed the courtyard to a gentle, comfortable temperature. You notice the way shadows stretch and bend with the angle of the light, turning familiar stones into subtle patterns of dark and soft gold. Kaldi leads the goats to a patch of clover, moving with a relaxed authority that comes from familiarity and ease. You follow at a measured pace, feeling the soft crunch of dry leaves beneath your feet, the occasional cool patch of damp stone underfoot, reminding you that life is a careful balance of elements. The monk invites you to join him near the roasting area again. Today, he explains, they will experiment with slight variations in the beans' roasting time. You watch as he sorts through them, separating the darker, more roasted ones from the lighter, tender batches. His hands move slowly, deliberately, with the kind of careful attention that makes even the smallest action feel significant. Kaldi circles nearby, sniffing each pile and occasionally pawing at one, a comical yet earnest inspector of flavor. As the fire warms, the beans begin to crackle and hiss. You inhale the aroma, feeling it settle gently into your chest, a quiet anchor in the soft morning light. The monk begins pouring water over the beans, his movements deliberate, almost hypnotic. The steam curls upward in slow, curling tendrils, carrying with it the rich, earthy scent that has become so familiar. Each sip you take now seems to capture not only flavor, but memory, patience, and the subtle joy of observation. You wander among the herbs and vegetables while the brew settles, noticing small things, a snail moving carefully along a wet leaf, the delicate veins of a freshly sprouted herb, the glint of light on a dewdrop. Each detail draws your attention and invites contemplation, teaching you the quiet art of noticing. Kaldi flops down beside a basil plant, curling up and occasionally sniffing at the greenery with a slow, contented satisfaction. You laugh quietly, marveling at the simplicity of it all, at how every life here, human, goat, or plant, participates in this slow, deliberate rhythm. The monk calls you back to sip the new batch. You wrap your hands around the warm cup, inhaling the aroma and letting it fill you. The taste is deeper, more complex than before, a gentle richness that lingers on your tongue and settles softly in your chest. It carries with it the essence of the morning, patience, attention, calm, and subtle delight. Kaldi nudges the cup gently, reminding you that this ritual is shared, that discovery is most satisfying when it is observed together. You take another slow sip and sit back, watching the courtyard. Sunlight glimmers on wet stone, leaves sway lazily in the soft breeze, and the monks move quietly through their tasks. Time seems suspended, as if the world itself has chosen to slow down just for this morning. You realize, with a serene sense of certainty, that coffee, accidental though it may have been, is inseparable from this rhythm. It is a companion to patience, an invitation to observe, a gentle teacher in the art of living deliberately. And so, you sip again, letting warmth, flavor, and quiet presence settle deep inside. The courtyard, the beans, the monks, the goats, the sun, the light, all weave together into a soft, unhurried tapestry of life. Each moment is unremarkable yet remarkable, fleeting yet eternal, and you allow yourself to be wholly immersed in the slow, gentle unfolding of history, ritual, and discovery. The afternoon drifts lazily toward evening, and the courtyard takes on a soft, amber glow as sunlight filters through the monastery's high windows. You wander toward the garden once again, your steps slow, savouring the gentle crunch of dry leaves beneath your feet. Kaldi and the goats meander ahead, pausing occasionally to nibble on stray herbs or chase a drifting leaf with mild interest. The world feels expansive yet intimate, a quiet theatre where each small motion matters. The monk is already tending to the fire, carefully arranging the coals in preparation for another round of roasting. He moves with unhurried precision, each gesture deliberate, almost ritualistic, yet understated. You notice the way his eyes linger on the beans, as if they hold secrets only revealed to those willing to wait and observe. Kaldi ambles closer, sniffing at the piles, occasionally pouring a stray bean, his movements deliberate in their own comical rhythm. The roasting begins, and the beans emit a soft, earthy aroma that blends effortlessly with the scent of the garden and the warm stone beneath your feet. Steam rises in delicate, twisting tendrils, carrying the subtle hints of rain from earlier in the day and the faint sweetness of herbs growing nearby. You lean closer to inhale, feeling the fragrance settle in your chest and calm your thoughts. Each crackle and pop of the roasting beans is like a punctuation mark in the quiet narrative of the monastery, signaling a subtle shift, a soft progression in the day's rhythm. The monk pours hot water over the beans with careful attention, letting it settle into the pot and swirl into a rich, dark liquid. The steam curls and drifts lazily, carrying the promise of warmth and comfort. You pick up a small cup, letting the heat seep into your palms, and take a slow sip. The flavour is familiar now, layered with earth, subtle herbs, and the faint, grounding bitterness that speaks of patience, attention, and shared discovery. Kaldi nudges the cup slightly, and you smile, recognizing the gentle reminder that even in the simplest rituals, connection matters. You wander among the herbs and vegetables while the monk tends the fire, observing tiny details, a droplet clinging to the edge of a leaf, a bee moving with delicate precision, the way sunlight glimmers on the wet stone. Each small observation is a reminder that life's quiet pleasures are often overlooked, yet they carry profound meaning when noticed. You think about the journey of coffee, how this accidental discovery mirrors these small moments, unassuming, subtle, and yet transformative. Sitting with the cup in hand, you notice the soft interplay of light and shadow across the courtyard. Every detail, the gentle sway of leaves, the muted clatter of tools, the shifting shapes of goats and monks, seems deliberate, like a carefully choreographed dance that only the attentive observer can fully appreciate. You sip again, letting warmth and flavour settle in your chest, feeling the comforting, steady pulse of the monastery's rhythm. Time stretches, unhurried, each moment soft and deliberate. The accidental invention of coffee is no longer merely a curiosity, it has become a symbol of quiet presence, observation, and patience. And in this slow unfolding you recognize that some of the world's most profound lessons arrive not with fanfare or urgency, but in subtle, patient, and understated ways, much like the gentle arc of a day in a quiet monastery. As evening deepens, a soft hush blankets the monastery. The sky outside the courtyard has muted into shades of lavender and deep indigo, stars beginning to twinkle faintly overhead. The air carries a subtle chill, mixing with the lingering warmth of the day and the soft aroma of roasted coffee beans. You walk slowly toward the fire pit, feeling the comforting roughness of stone beneath your palms as you lean down, observing the monk tending the beans with meticulous care. Kaldi and his goats wander near the garden, the animals moving with deliberate, sleepy grace, curling up near patches of soft grass. The monks themselves move quietly, hands brushing over stones, leaves, and herbs with the gentle care of long practice. You notice the tiny details that make this place feel like it exists slightly apart from the rush of the world. A distant owl hooting softly, the faint drip of water from leaves overhead, the whisper of the wind through ivy crawling along the monastery walls. The monk pours hot water over the roasted beans for this evening's cup, letting it settle into the clay pot in slow, measured swirls. The steam rises lazily, curling in intricate patterns that you almost imagine are small messages, instructions on how to move through life more deliberately. You hold a cup in your hands, feeling warmth seep slowly through the clay and into your fingers, and take a measured sip. The taste is rich, earthy, and grounding, carrying the essence of this quiet, deliberate world. You wander slowly through the courtyard, letting your gaze take in the interplay of shadows and firelight. Kaldi nudges a stray bean toward you with gentle insistence, and you chuckle softly, savouring the small, shared ritual. Each breath, Each sip, each observation, feels amplified in the absence of rush. Life seems simultaneously larger and more intimate, a careful, unhurried unfolding of simple moments that carry subtle, lasting weight. The monk gestures for you to sit beside him on the low stone bench, and you comply, feeling the cool stone beneath you and the warmth of your coffee settle into your chest. Around you, the monastery breathes with a soft, deliberate rhythm, footsteps on stone, rustling robes, shifting goats, each sound gentle, purposeful, part of the quiet symphony of evening. The coffee has become more than a drink. It is a companion, a teacher, a reminder that observation, patience, and quiet attention are often more valuable than action, speed, or noise. You sip again, letting the flavor linger, noticing the faint sweetness of herbs mingling with the earthy bitterness of roasted beans. The courtyard seems to stretch endlessly around you, expansive yet comforting. Each detail, the glint of firelight, the sway of a branch, the subtle movements of monks and goats, forming a tapestry of deliberate care. You realize that every small action here, every measured step, every quiet observation, is part of the gentle instruction that coffee has brought into this world, slow, patient, and fully present. The night grows deeper, stars multiplying overhead, and the courtyard becomes a sanctuary of shadow and light, warmth and coolness, movement and stillness. Kaldi lies sprawled on the grass, goats nestled near him, the monk sitting quietly with his cup. You take another slow sip, allowing the warmth and flavor to settle in your chest. In this serene, unhurried rhythm, you begin to feel a subtle understanding. The accidental invention of coffee was never about speed or excitement, but about the quiet, patient art of noticing, savoring, and being present in the world. The night settles fully over the monastery, and the courtyard is bathed in a soft, silvery light that seems to smooth every edge, every shadow, into quiet, forgiving shapes. You sit quietly, the warmth of the last cup of coffee lingering in your chest, and feel the cool stone beneath you slowly absorbing the day's heat, returning it in gentle, calming pulses. Kaldi lies nearby, stretched across the grass with the goats clustered around him, their soft breathing a lullaby that blends seamlessly with the distant rustle of ivy and the faint murmur of the wind through the trees. You take a deep, slow breath, noticing the subtle textures of the night, the delicate, almost imperceptible movement of leaves, the distant twinkle of stars mirrored faintly in the wet stones. The lingering scent of roasted beans and damp earth curling softly around you. Time feels suspended, a gentle river flowing without urgency, and you find yourself letting each moment wash over you, allowing your thoughts to drift in the quiet currents of memory, observation, and gentle curiosity. The world is reduced to these simple elements: warmth and coolness, light and shadow, scent and sound, presence and awareness, each one unfolding patiently, deliberately, without demand or rush. You feel the rhythm of life here seep into your limbs, a slow, measured cadence that encourages relaxation, a softness that encourages rest. The fire's last embers glow faintly, the steam from the clay pots curling into the night, dissolving gradually into the cool air, and you realize that everything, the beans, the monastery, the goats, even the quiet stars, participates in this gentle ceremony of calm. You let your eyes close, your mind wandering freely yet securely, each breath drawing you deeper into the serene hush of the night. The accidental invention of coffee, once a curiosity, has become a companion in this slow, deliberate rhythm, teaching without words, comforting without insistence, and whispering gently that peace, patience, and presence are among the quietest and most profound treasures of all.